Hey everyone, today I'm going to be shedding a bit of a light on a niche show, a bit of a smaller show, a bit of a lesser known show. It's sort of popular down here in Australia, but apart from that, it's not that popular overseas, like in America where really everything matters. And even in Australia, it's not crazy popular, like you go down the street and you don't know, someone says, okay, yeah. I'm not the first to praise Bluey, and I definitely will not be the last. But, as an Australian with young siblings, I feel that I'm a good authority on this show. So today, I will be ranking every single episode in Season 1. But before I do that, I would like to speak to those people who have not seen Bluey. I imagine that at some point you've wondered if the entire internet went insane, crying over and praising this cartoon for babies. And to that I say, the internet has always been insane. But not in this case. I would like to explain why I think Bluey took off. Number 1. Bluey is authentic and relatable. Especially if you live in suburban Australia, Bluey manages to accurately portray the experiences of children and parents alike, making them feel seen. I can vividly remember many situations from Bluey in my own life, whether it be from my childhood or my siblings' childhood. Number 2. The show is beautiful. From the art and colouring to the classical music, the vibes in every single Bluey episode are off the charts. It's not often that you see a kids' show have such a unique sense of artistic identity. I say kids in quotes because, number 3, Bluey isn't just a kids' show. While yes, Bluey is made for kids' enjoyment and is aired on children's programming, the show definitely keeps in mind the poor parents who are up at 4 a.m. with their children. If any parents are watching this, you're doing amazing. The best episodes of Bluey have stories that children can easily understand, but also have genuinely good lessons and themes for adults to appreciate. And finally, number 4, it's comforting. The Healer family is so functional and wholesome. The show provides an excellent escape to times where things are more simple, and recaptures the feeling of childlike innocence we've all had. Okay, now that my pre-show rambling has concluded, let's get on with ranking every single episode in Season 1.
Have you got a baby in there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I know I was just gassing up this show, but this episode doesn't really have the same juices that the majority of this show cooks with. Because not much is really going on. It's just a normal game that Bluey and Bingo are playing with their dad. Don't get me wrong, it's still a perfectly serviceable episode of kids programming. That's why it's in C tier. And it's funny, like, I have a pretty good time watching it, but I'll probably never choose to watch it voluntarily unless I'm going through the whole series for a ranking video or something.
Bullet to bug on the wall, ding ching. No one to love him at all, ding ching.
I don't know, guys. This episode's fine. I like to see Bluey and Bingo's relationship tested in a serious way, but taking just this episode, I don't really like Judo that much. I understand she's supposed to be a bit annoying, being an only child, but that doesn't really make her more entertaining to watch. This being said, I do like her future appearances. My main problem with this episode is that it really isn't that funny. Like, Bandit being constantly interrupted by the game is really the only joke in the episode. It has a nice conclusion to its problem, but I didn't really feel like seeing that problem in the first place. And with very little humour, it's just not my ideal episode, but still okay.
That's very clever, Bingo.
It's called a tactical wee.
I'm gonna be honest, guys, the whole thing about Bluey appreciating Bandit's sacrifices for her is adorable. And the fact that a part of her idealized dream world is that her dad gets to have a good time playing sport is so freaking sweet. However, this makes up a very small percentage of the episode, and the rest of it isn't all that. I feel like a broken record, but it's still a good episode. It just doesn't have as many awesome jokes as many other episodes in the season. However, I did enjoy the tactical Wii joke. It was equal parts adorable and funny. That probably sounds a bit weird out of context, but whatevs. Watch the damn show, cowards.
You can either take turns, or I'll bring the xylophone to work with me. I'll freeze my boss.
Ah yes, the first episode of the series, and quite a good pilot, I will say. Of course, it sort of played it safe, which is fair enough, but that doesn't really matter for our purposes today. The episode is a very good introduction to all the characters. I especially liked Chili being sassy, Bandit being dedicated, Bluey showing her bossy nature, and Bingo not following the rules. The reading of lines from the kids feels a bit off, but this is fixed immediately. And it has a fine message. Yeah, a lot of episodes do have a moral of the story. It's a kids' show, what are you gonna do? However, taking turns is not the craziest thing that this show talks about.
You have to say I do. Yeah, but in horsey talk.
The crazy thing about this episode is that my favourite part of it is just the final joke.
Well, who could blame him?
The rest of the episode is pretty meh, to be honest. The horsey ride game just doesn't interest me all that much. Though I do like Bandit and Stripe trying their best to be able to watch the cricket. It's just one of those episodes that's just, the kids play a game. Awesome. Anyway, fine episode, moving on.
Is it Keepy Uppy?
Yeah, it's Keepy Uppy.
It's Keepy Uppy!
Keepy Uppy is very nostalgic for me. I remember having good times with this game. I wish I could mention every little joke and detail in this series, because already there's plenty of them in every episode. But this video would be way too long, so I'll leave that job to Cinema Wins, I guess. However, I do have one problem with this episode, and you'll all make fun of me for poking the logic in a kid's show, but it does irk me that the whole climax relies on the fact that they can't just grab the balloon instead of smacking it across the backyard. That all being said, this episode does introduce my favourite character, Lucky's dad. It's not his best appearance, but it's still awesome. I also like how this episode has a parent half growth. Again, it's not the best example of this that the show has, but I appreciate the episode for creating parents that are still flawed without making them bad parents.
That is the mountain way.
This episode is pretty cool. I like the concept of Mount Mum and Dad, but have absolutely no idea how Chili and Bandit do not object to being climbed over. I enjoyed seeing Bluey and Bingo work together. Also, them playing Snap was oddly hilarious. A part of me likes the connection between the tortoise and the hare, but at the same time, them specifically connecting to that story just makes the episode feel a bit cliche.
It has a bed and a TV. Oh, and there's a lady in the shower.
This episode feels a bit same, to be honest. It's just a game with Bandit where Bluey learns some lessons. That being said, Hotel is an enjoyable game to watch, and Bingo's antics are very cute. I like Bluey's little arc in this episode, showing her flaws in more realistic ways than most kids' shows. However, this is far from the best episode to tackle this bossy side of Bluey.
I don't understand. Why would a leaf want to walk?
I like The Weekend. It's quite simple, which is fine, because it's unapologetically funny and wholesome. In particular, Bingo's reaction to the walking leaf is adorable as heck. Bandit basically spends the episode proving why he's the best father in fiction, which is awesome because I hope that many kids learn to aspire to be the parent that Bandit is, as well as the parent that Chili is, but this episode isn't about her. This Bluey episode is also the first to make use of the magical, classical music that the show has become synonymous with, making it the first B-tier episode.
This is a fish and chip shop, but we've run out of fish, so it's just chip.
This episode is really, really bad because no classroom could ever be disorganized. Okay, anyway, Calypso is a really awesome character. I love how in tune she is with her kids. The way everyone's games slot together to make a nice little community just feels so satisfying, even if it is extremely unrealistic. I also like this episode because it introduces many new iconic characters, such as the Terriers, Rusty, and Indy. Overall, epic episode.
I was hanging out the washing, and my arms fell off.
This episode is just a whole lot of fun. I love seeing the kids' little notions and assumptions about how doctors work. You can just tell Bingo wanted to play doctors because she heard some TV show or something where a doctor was like,
Hold my appointment.
There are many similar running gags that I enjoy, like the lollipops and the increasing absurdity of the ailments. My favourite being Indy coming in and going,
I was hanging out the washing, and my arms fell off.
The way they show the kids having a good time is just so infectious. You can't help but enjoy it. As I said earlier, it unlocks that little kid inside all of us. I guess if I had to criticize, it's not that deep of an episode, but it's still a good time.
A rock melon. Yeah, and I'm a fly.
Oh no.
Most of this episode is quite mid. It's nice, but it's pretty much just Bandit playing random games with his kids. That being said, it does make up for it in the end. I love the idea of Bandit stressing the importance of creating and playing games, because it's how kids learn and grow and make mistakes. And as a result, I would say this episode is good. But that's about it.
Well, Lon, I really think you should get
There it is.
On this episode of Bandit Loves His Kids Too Much, Bluey and Bingo test their dad's patience to a point that most dads would probably get mad. All of the games that they play with the yoga ball are creative and fun to watch. And actually, it's pretty cool to just have a bunch of games with one common thread. It's almost like a tutorial for kids who are bored. The show does a good job switching up the music and perspective to show Bingo's discomfort at key points of the episode. Chili's heart-to-heart with Bingo is lovely. It's nice to see Mum show her parenting chops instead of Bandit all the time. Also, I like how they use Big Girl Bark to remind us that they are still dogs. Bandit's apology is important for people of all ages to see. He takes responsibility, apologizes, and works to make sure that the problem doesn't happen again. Overall, an excellent episode for a good model of relationships. Just not the funniest or most emotional.
I said, go and get a job.
I like this episode because the whole family has a major role, which means we get many different character dynamics. Particularly, the scenes where Bandit and Chili are alone are really good. I think it's funny how Bandit's attempt to impart his timeless wisdom onto his kids completely backfires. However, it may take away from the genuine value of his advice for kids who watch the episode. However, I do fully support the wholesome end of the episode where Bandit expresses how much he loves his kids.
Oh yeah, love. Fix your doodad. Oh, the doodad.
Again, this is quite a simple episode, but lots of fun. All of the characters that the healers roleplay as are entertaining, and the writing background is such a mood. There's really not much to talk about with this one though, so yeah, next episode.
You're very hungry.
I'm very hungry.
Backpackers is an okay episode. It's got quite a few good jokes, like how Bandit and Chili use different languages to talk to people, and also Jeremy. The concept is quite creative, if not slightly impractical. They're lucky it's a cartoon. I do really like the way that the kids tell Bandit and Chili how to think and act. It's fun. However, the through line with the lucky objects does not interest me in the slightest. I would have Bandit and Chili be wistful about their time backpacking, but at the end of the episode, realize that where they live is still pretty cool. It'd make this scene make a lot more sense. But hey, at least the game is good.
Maybe they're in here. Found you!
Chattermax is the incarnation of evil, and it is no wonder that he was shoved underneath the kitchen sink. His return is a kid to Kronos, clawing his way out of Tartarus. Anyway, Hide and Seek is a pretty cool episode. Bluey's arc was actually very good this episode. There's not really another episode that tackles her easily distracted nature, as far as I can remember, and it has a really wholesome ending.
Hey, this bug looks like bird poo.
First off, Shadowlands is such a creative game that I'd never heard of before. I'm assuming that at least one of the creators' kids had played it before. I like how the show makes the scale of things slightly unrealistic, because it better shows the game from the children's perspective, who view the game as an epic undertaking. And epic it was. I loved using the bus to cross over the chasm, Bluey and Coco creating shadows for Snickers to jump over, and the cloud cover providing them a get out of jail free card. The way that the kids talk to each other in this episode feels very authentic, especially their arguments. And the message about rules feels less overbearing than messages in other episodes, because it can be difficult to explain why we need the rules. However, the episode does a good job showing why it would have been bad if Coco had gotten her way.
Have these got any wheat, sugar, gluten or dairy in them?
That's all they've got in them.
I love the market setting. It's got so much detail and accuracy as to the type of stuff being sold, and the backgrounds are very pretty. I also love how much of a sense of community is created through the markets, with people buying and donating. It's very nice. Anyway, Bluey learns how money works this episode, which I totally didn't expect. But she also learns that kindness will pay off somehow. I like how Indy spouted the message of this episode without really knowing exactly what it means. Hopefully kids are smart enough to understand what the episode is trying to say. I have faith in them. Though, I don't know why everyone had to floss this episode. I understand it's a thing that lots of kids did when this episode came out, but come on.
Girls are strong, like King Kong. Boys are weak. Chuck them in the creek.
The cinematic black bars truly carry this episode. They were absolutely hilarious. The role switching was also very funny. And so were the terriers. I love the terriers. I'm not sure why they only have like 4 appearances in the show. I do also quite like how they are playing princesses. But as Chloe's dad wrongly assumes, it's not a stereotypical princess games. It's a big adventure. It's cool that the episode purposely decided to call attention to gender stereotypes, especially with stuff like this.
He's not allowed to do this. It's against the monkey rules.
Usually, I don't enjoy the episodes where the family just plays a game. However, today's roleplay session actually had quite an enjoyable storyline and characters. I like how the parents draw on character archetypes they've seen in movies. It means that no matter how tropey the characters are, it doesn't feel weird because they're just playing pretend. The episode had some genuine heart to it, despite the fact that they're just pretend characters. So yeah, despite not being deep in the slightest, I don't know, it was a nice one.
Aw, poor Mum. She's all on her own.
Mum likes being by herself.
Oh, I wonder why.
This episode is vibes incarnate. The music sort of reminds me of Hilda, which is a massive compliment. The vibes in Hilda are supreme. The beach aesthetic is also pretty cool, and as a walking enjoyer, this episode speaks to me. The first 10 seconds of this episode are their own short episode, and the rest of the episode is also pretty good. I just said episode a lot. It's nothing crazy, but it's easy to get invested in Bluey's journey past the dangers of the beach. Also, the ending is very, very sweet. Okay, next episode.
No, I just like chocolate sometimes.
For a kids show, this episode says a lot about trust and anxiety and having fun. There's a lot of good stuff about being balanced and sibling relationships, but I don't know. Apart from that, it's kind of boring. It's like the really good is cancelled out by the boring, and now the episode is just good. And using the hands as people is interesting, but a bit strange to think about.
Then I can doot things. Dooting is fun. Doot, 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 doot.
I love how the music continues to build in this episode, but it gets shut down each time someone wants to add some random detail. I love seeing the personality of the kids come together, and even conflict. Bluey and Mackenzie's reconciliation was nice, if not a bit idealistic. And the end of the episode was absolutely perfect. The music finally gets to build till it's done, and then they just move on. It's a hilarious representation of how Mackenzie feels and how the audience feels. The anticlimactic end was the best way for this episode to go.
Do your worst, fairies. I'm not scared of you.
This episode throws into question the whole lore of Bluey, because there's no way that all of that stuff could happen to the healers through Bingo, which implies that Bingo literally summoned the forces of karma to repent against Bandit's wrongdoings. I'm pretty sure this is just a MatPat theory, but I'm not sure, I haven't seen it. Anyway, whether or not the fairies are real, this was quite a fun watch. Definitely not the most emotional or most funny episode. We are getting to around the midpoint, but it was still pretty good. I do like that this episode shows Bandit making a mistake. His reaction to Bingo interrupting him is fairly understandable. However, I appreciate that he makes up for it in the end.
Hello? Yes, we do make drain pipes. Traditionally they're round.
The characters in this game, like Zoo, were just fun to watch. It's really weird because not only am I invested in cartoon characters who I know aren't real, but I'm invested in the fake storylines and characters that these fake drawings create as well. It's fricked up is what it is. Anyway, the fact that Bandit genuinely sat in the rain offering drain pipes to passers-by was absolutely hilarious. And Bluey saying,
I used to work with that guy.
at the end was hilarious. Great episode.
It's my neighbor. He's, well, I don't know what he's doing.
Something I noticed about this episode is that at the end, you can see the neighbors on Bluey Street chatting. Usually the street is empty at the beginning and ending shots, which is pretty cool. I do like the games where each of the characters have their individual games, but they kind of affect each other. Similar to the game in the episode Calypso. Also, I like how every character comes in asking for the couch cushions. It's just a really funny joke. However, I do have a couple of small issues with this episode. For one, the piano sound that plays when people pull the face is a bit silly. I kind of find it hard to take it seriously. Also, I understand that there can be a subtle chill in asking nicely, but I just don't feel like it's a guaranteed strategy. The episode is still really entertaining though.
Lay an egg, lay a chicken, rat egg.
I love when Bluey does small things to change up the structure of an episode. They don't have to be crazy, but just a small difference can make an episode really stand out. And wouldn't you know, Chicken Rat is one of these episodes. Having the story be told backwards, through the lens of Bluey and Bingo retracing their steps, which is a perfect reason for the story to be told backwards, because if we all had nickels for every time we were told to retrace our steps as kids. The story is surprisingly easy to understand, as they purposely made links between each scene, so you can remember where they were going next and why. However, despite my love for this episode shaking up the formula, it's just not as funny as the majority of episodes.
Personally, I can't go back to single ply. No, that's madness.
This episode holds a special place in my heart, as it's where I get my channel name from. Every scene with Bandit in the toilet paper chair is extremely funny, as is Snowdrop. The overarching topic for this episode being about parents playing favourites is another topic for an episode that just feels perfect for the show, and it's depicted in such a creative way. Bluey organically realizes for herself why having favourites is a bad thing for the kid's mental health. But for real, I don't know how Bandit lets this crap happen in public.
Hello, Dr. Ladies. You sell crackers?
I like how this episode has one converging point, which is just a really funny scene out of context. However, what's amazing is that it's still funny after giving all the context needed. I like the tone difference between the two games being played, and how traumatized Bluey looks after hearing what Rusty's game was all about. It is really accurate though. We think of kids as not being able to handle death and sacrifice and violence, but they play these sorts of games all the time. Anyway, I love how this episode has a constant theme of bravery. The two different tones of games show how bravery can take its form in many different ways. It's not just fighting a dragon. I also like how this episode is a prequel to Mums and Dads. And speaking of Mums and Dads,
Well, I'm not playing Mums and Dads with you ever again.
crazy how these two are right next to each other, ain't it? Anyway, I love all of the unique personalities we get in this episode. The Terriers are again criminally underrated. The awesome setup and payoff for "Are you ready to storm the castle?" is so good to the point that it's probably one of my favourite jokes in the whole show. Rusty and Indy are great protagonists and easily carry the episode in the place of Bluey and Bingo. My main reason for loving this episode is just how funny it is. There's so many jokes, with each character bringing in their own vibes, making it an extremely fun watch.
Third one is don't eat the next door neighbours. That's a really important one.
The actual plot of this episode, I don't really care much for. Mainly because it's so weird that a family would let their kids derail dinner time like this. Unless they didn't have a choice. Bluey is magic, confirmed. Anyway, you may be wondering, if you don't really care for the plot, why is the episode so damn high? Well, my friend, it's because of the animation. I just love the unique character designs and movement of each animal that the fam turns into. They embody each creature excellently. It's really impressive stuff. The episode is also pretty funny. However, everything is eclipsed by the scene including Lucky's dad, in which Bingo and Chili literally gnaw at his leg, trying to drag him away, and afterwards he just goes, "No worries, it was my fault anyway." Just a beautiful scene. And yeah, the episode's pretty good too, I guess.
Isn't anyone going to mention the salads?
This episode is pretty awesome, because its message is very specific, but it's one that I greatly appreciate. No one thinks of the salad. The whole episode, Bluey stands still, cooking the sausages, not having to do anything. But Bingo goes through literal hell, and once everything is said and done, Bingo's salad is pushed to the floor. I imagine this scenario has happened many times, where the person responsible for the sausages is appreciated, but the salad goes unnoticed. Now I'm always sure to thank anyone who is involved in the prep for a meal. This episode is also awesome because it introduces the cousins. In particular, I love Stripes and Bandit's relationship, and I love listening in to the short snippets of conversation that the adults have. But yeah, thank you, Barbecue.
This is all my stuff from when I used to be cool.
What's this? An episode about technology that doesn't feel overbearing or annoying? I might just be projecting my own beliefs here, but I like that the episode never says technology bad. It just says, hey, maybe touching grass is a pretty good idea once in a while. It's made clear that technology is a part of our lives, and we can't change that. We also see that Chili and Bandit are looking at screens often throughout the episode, and easily cave into Bluey and Bingo's demands for cartoons, showing that it's not just the fault of the children. I love all the scenes in kindergarten classroom, especially this weird-ass scene, because you know that's just a hand puppet. However, this is not even the best episode convincing people to touch grass, so stick around.
And then you will never have to tidy playroom ever again. What? It's a solid plan, Master.
This episode manages to fit so many jokes into one episode, it's crazy. The Russian dancing being my favourite. I love how Bandit uses what he knows about AI uprising type stuff to try to teach his kids a lesson, and him pretending to put the kids in the trash is gold. Bluey and Bingo's reactions are priceless. The episode also does a good job showing how genuine Bandit and Chili's relationship is. Again, the show is excellent at creating a model for good relationships. This episode is wonderful, and probably the first sign of the greatness that this show achieves.
I'm not scared of a silly blue whale. Yeah, more like poo whale.
Similarly to the Yoga Ball episode, I like how the episode changes the scale of the playground to make it feel more exciting, or in the case of Missy, intimidating. It helps represent how these small children feel, which is pretty cool. It's also pretty cool how both Bandit and Missy are scared of something. It seems like a small detail, yes, but do you see any other kids' shows giving their adult characters lessons to learn that parallel the children's journey? No, you don't, because Bluey is the best of all of them. A nice detail in this episode is that when Bandit eventually continues putting full effort into his whale noises, the dad he was embarrassed by just smiles. It's a good representation of how you're always most concerned about how you look in public.
I slipped on my veins.
Now, you'd probably think that an episode where at least one character is flossing for almost half of the runtime would be cringe. And you might be right, but I can ignore it, because really the flossing could be any dance. And the episode is really about the idea of needing to be right, which is a very, very good message for the episode, because there are many people, kid or not, that need to be right and are not very gracious about it. Rita and Janet are instantly iconic characters. Seeing the perception of certain concepts like old people and doctors from these kids' perspective never fails to not be charming. Overall, an excellent episode that's infinitely rewatchable.
It's just like jumping from one sheep to another. We don't jump on sheep, Mackenzie.
Guys, The Creek is such a beautiful episode. The lovely backgrounds of the Australian bush, the sweeping music, it does such a good job showing the beauty of the outdoors, making this episode maybe one of the most important in the season. I think kids these days need to be shown the value of touching grass. However, it's also a realistic view of nature. I have gotten my shoes wet many times jumping through water. Also, the comments about ticks and snakes are really funny to me. It's all very Australian. Also, the drop bears are a fun mention. Very rare, but very terrifying. I just hope they put those rocks back.
Does that make sense?
No.
Okay, just do your best, kid.
This episode is basically just a better hotel, teaching Bluey to stop being so bossy. However, it has the added bonus of being even more sweet, because Bluey feels the effects of Bingo not being there extremely hard. I love when Bandit tries to explain to Bluey the importance of staying as a pack, and just gives up immediately. As someone who tutors kids, it's very relatable to forget how many assumptions you already have in your head that younger people just don't have. But of course, you forget this while trying to explain topics. This episode also continues the trend of me being able to listen in to adult conversations, and there's so many of them this time, it's awesome. For example, Bandit worrying and arguing about the sausages, only for them to go up in literal flames. Also, surely the spell can't have been a coincidence, right? Bluey is mad. The whole character arc of this episode, of Bluey learning how to tame Sean, is fine, but for me, the shenanigans of Sean is what I'm here for. Lucky's dad continues to be my favourite character, letting his friend/neighbour peck at him while smiling. I also love when he yells to his wife that Sean's back, which has hilarious implications. I don't actually know why this episode is so high. It's just very based, I guess.
These carrots are nice, but what I really want is my very own puppy.
In this episode of Bluey, Bingo becomes a React Andy, and Bandit learns that editing is hard. The framing device of a video being sent to Bingo in hospital is really fun, and leads to some awesome running jokes, such as Muffin being not an actor, and Bandit being not an editor. I like how the adults in the hospital are picking apart the logic of the silly video, but Bingo is fully engrossed, because A, she's a child, and B, it speaks very strongly to her. Her family must know her really well, because damn. Either that or Chili communicated to Bandit what Bingo was struggling with, which actually explains why Chili is so choked up to see the video fitting Bingo's struggles so perfectly. But no, strong communication in Bluey? You must be crazy.
Dad, I'm cold. Dad, I'm freezing. Dad, I'm hungry. Dad, I'm starving. Dad.
The first thing I'll say about this episode is this. The music slaps so hard, my god. Anyway, the average pool experience is done so well in this episode. The hot concrete, the shady bit in the pool, Bingo being scared of the pool cleaner, guessing what you're saying underwater. Like, my gosh, it's all here. The idea of boring things versus fun things is another one of those perfect conflicts to have in a kids show that Bluey just does so well with. Dad forgetting all the stuff and Mum having to come in and save them is so accurate. Overall, this episode makes me feel seen so much and is really epic. Alright everyone, we're at the top 10 now. It's the big boys, the hard hitters, the ones that make you cry. But first, just a really funny episode.
Coconuts have water in them.
I don't care what anyone says. I love Muffin, especially in this episode. The actual plot of the episode is also really good, but man, it's just topped by Muffin being so funny, it's unreal. I am constantly thinking about
Coconuts have water in them.
the ending with Bluey hiding Muffin away in a sleeping bag is lovely, and the fact that she is basically hungover the next day is also pretty funny.
Dad,
Yeah?
how does the baby get in the lady's belly?
Oh!
Guys, I have a problem. I'm pretty sure I've been classically conditioned by the music of this show to just start tearing up. This episode is good, but the music makes me freaking cry, which it really shouldn't. It's good, but like, I shouldn't be tearing up, man. Anyway, this episode is lovely. I really enjoy how Bluey uses games to cope with her situation, putting herself in the shoes of someone who's less perturbed. The episode is also a riot. I love the dropping game, pregnant lady obstacle course, and of course, how do babies get into the lady's tummy? It's a really nice episode for Bluey, and the kiss at the end was adorable. Plus, the montage made me feel all the emotions. But again, that may have just been the music.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No worries, Muffin. I accept you're sorry.
I love seeing holiday specials that take elements from the holiday and align them with their usual style. This episode tells its story so perfectly. The kids will always apologize to Santa by shouting at the sky, instead of saying sorry to the people they actually hurt. This happens immediately as the episode starts, and it's clear that they don't understand why we're supposed to be kind. Bluey learning why we are kind, just by simply seeing Socks alone outside, is really beautiful. It's also really funny that Stripes is just a punching bag. However, his daughter doesn't have many iconic lines to say, which is a massive disappointment. 0 out of 10, moving on.
Flowers may bloom again, but a person never has a chance to be young again.
I freaking love bottle episodes. It's so fun to see creators try to keep people's attentions in different ways when they only have one environment to do it in. And for takeaway, it's basically one camera angle. Sure, it zooms to specific parts of the scene, but it's always just from the street, looking at the window. The way they keep our attention is just by having an overwhelming onslaught of jokes and comments and shenanigans, which also works to elevate the story of Bandit trying to control his hungry children. The constant questioning from Bingo, the not needing the water while the water is on, but needing the water while the water is off, not liking the spicy food, all comes together to make a totally unique, chaotic energy. I love how everything calms down at the end, only for Bingo to ask a question that Bandit cannot even begin to fathom, so he just decides to go home. The ending of Bandit allowing his kids to shower under the tap is unexpected, but also really nice. The episode is truly a magnificent journey, beginning with one man's gluttony. But to be fair, I wouldn't have left without the spring rolls either.
I'm getting a bit sick of your names, kids. I think I'm going to change them.
What?
This episode is a lovely time. Quite simple, just the family telling stories about examples of Bandit's possible teasing. I like how the episode doesn't give an answer to what's considered teasing or not, because it depends on a person's boundaries. And as we can see, all ended well. So I say Bandit's off the hook. This episode is also extremely accurate with all of its stories, with passwords and pretending to be mum. Also, the montage of how Bluey and Bingo always use Bandit's teasings against him is spectacular.
You ladies are certainly up early.
Oh yes, it's got to be done.
More than other episodes, this one just leaves me with a massive smile on my face. It's yet another one of those perfect conflicts for a kid's show. Despite not being a kid, it's nice to see a kid learn these lessons for the first time. Bandit again proves why he's the best dad in fiction. He makes a mistake by just telling Bluey to get over it, but then actually tries to come up with a solution for Bluey's problems. I also like how this episode shows that despite being younger, Bingo has strengths that Bluey does not. I feel like a broken record at this point, but I love hearing the conversations between parents, especially Bandit saying, "It's gotta be done." Bluey repeating it at the end, showing how she learns from Bandit and how much of a role model Bandit is for her. Oh my god, it's too wholesome.
So, did you know, Bluey, Yellow the little chubby gnomes climb up the traffic light and paint them red and green? Oh.
Ah yes, when kids realize that their parents are fallible. An awesome topic for an episode. This episode is really well written. There's so many setups that function as their own jokes, like Bandit talking about goodies and baddies, or the driving, or right at the start when Bluey asks what they were dumping. In my notes for this episode, I just wrote, "is hilarious" and pro-recycling, which are both really good points. Well done, Diddums, you're so cool. The comment about Bluey having to figure out things for herself is so meaningful and emotional. Anything about Bluey growing up just hits me in the feels, as we will soon find out.
Why won't you go off my back, you bag?
Bike is a phenomenal episode. It's so easy to get invested in the three little plot lines of kids throughout the episode. They're all very simple problems, but since it's through the perspective of kids, you end up finding yourself getting excited by Muffin putting on a backpack, which is a very impressive feat. And I think the music plays a big part in that. It amplifies the intended feelings of every scene in the episode and is used so well. Again, the background artists go ham on the Outdoor Australia episodes. It's so good. As well as teaching kids not to give up and to find new ways around problems, this episode also speaks to letting your kids have independence. Bandit doesn't solve everyone's issues for them, but he's there to support them if needed. As I said right at the beginning, the best Bluey episodes teach parents and kids. Also, Muffin supremacy, baby!
Huh?
Huh?
Are you copying me?
Are you copying me?
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
This episode is so freaking crazy. It begins with an extremely fun sequence where Bluey is copying Bandit, only to shift tones completely, showing a little bird freaking dying, despite Bluey and her dad's best efforts. I know it's only a bird, but they really sell the hurt that Bluey experiences. She's just a kid and is not jaded from this sort of stuff like everyone else. For some reason, Chili and Bingo being ready out the door to support Bluey really gets me. Then, Bluey plays a game recreating the events of the morning, more of that coping mechanism. The irony is that she's still copying her dad, but in a much less funny way. Instead of just being annoying, she's genuinely putting herself in the shoes of someone she sees as more capable and someone who can deal with the events much easier. I also love how small events are mirrored, like the seatbelts and looking out for cars. It continues the idea of Bluey really viewing her dad as a role model. And then, to cap it all off, the game doesn't even go how Bluey planned. Exactly like how the morning didn't go as Bluey planned. The layers here are crazy for a kids' show. However, there is one episode I prefer more. And to those of you who have watched the show, it's probably not even a surprise.
Hello, Bluey.
This episode actually makes me full on cry. It's hard to believe I could sob to a 7-minute kids cartoon, but yeah, somehow Bluey manages it. Before the tears though, the vibes of this camping trip are immaculate. Muffin's only scene is awesome. Bluey and John Luke's bond is so special. The way that despite not being able to communicate in words, they manage to have so much fun together. I'm not sure why Bandit just decides to be a bore halfway through the episode, but it's pretty damn funny. But you know what's not funny? This scene right here. It's so meaningful and truthful and beautiful. From the moment that you see John Luke protest when Bluey says see you tomorrow, the episode hits you in the face, like, 7 times. The music, the tree growing, man, my god. And then seeing Bluey older, and then John Luke coming back, and it's like Star vs. the Forces of Evil, except actually good. Oh my god. This episode is a freaking masterpiece, and undoubtedly the best Bluey Season 1 has to offer. So yeah, that's Bluey Season 1. I'll definitely try to get to season 2 as fast as I can, but I'm not sure where the wind will take me. If you somehow manage to get to this point as someone who hasn't seen Bluey, what are you still doing here? You probably think I'm weird for liking this kids show so much, but just watch some of the top episodes on this list. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, bye bye. I'll see you later next time for season 2, baby.